Welcome, everybody, to the Boys and Woods podcast. Today, we have a special guest host, a country musician, Chris Moreno. Is that how you say it? Correct? We got it. Yeah. All right.
Yeah,
Good.
Marino is usually how I say it. So close enough.
Moreno.
Marino.
Yeah. I've noticed other people said Moreno. I was like, oh, man, we're going to
It
get
is.
it wrong, too. So we're good.
It's actually like it's spelt wrong because I'm Italian, but they changed it coming overseas, so it's spelt the Spanish way, but I'm not Spanish.
Oh,
So,
Nice.
that works.
so
I run into
we
this
said it correct.
as a Syers, Syers. Yeah, I run into, oh my gosh. Names are not something that I grew attached to at a young age.
Gotta let it go.
We're good.
Absolutely. So for our listeners out there, which is a whole bunch of sports freaks and leisure fanatics, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came about into the country music world. I was reading about you grew up in Massachusetts, and around November or around 2018, you had moved to Nashville. So I'll give you the floor, man. I'm really excited.
Yeah. I guess I'll start by saying I am a Boston sports fan, which I know can be a polarizing statement, but yeah, I grew up my whole life in Massachusetts, grew up there, went to college out in the western part of the state at UMass Amherst, and then I lived in Boston for about a decade after that, and I was doing music for the tail end of that until I went to Nashville. But yeah, born and raised in Massachusetts, and Nashville was a nice just change of pace overall, but also for the purposes of music, and I went full-time with music around that time as well. So happy to have grown up in the Northeast, but it's nice to have a different change, be somewhere else.
So I'm a huge foodie, man. Any chance I get to talk about food, I take it. So growing up in Boston, where was your food spot? Where was, like, whether your parents told you, hey, we're going here, and you just effed your pants because you were super excited? What's that spot that comes to mind?
When I was a kid, it was Pizza Hut. Sad to admit, but it's Pizza Hut.
No, that's I too, man.
Yeah. So I grew up, my mom's 100% Italian, so she was always a good cook. And then when I moved to Boston, I lived in the North End, which is Little Italy of Boston. Yeah. So I literally lived on top of restaurants and on the busiest street there. So it was just, I think there's literally like 100 Italian restaurants in this small radius. So yeah, Italian food, pizza, that's always my favorite. Not before I go on stage, but aside from that, that's what
do you have a before you go on stage prep meal?
It's just something light, with clean protein and a wrap or chicken rice, or I'm not superstitious or too picky, but the cleaner the better.
Yeah.
Typically.
Yeah, it's a good energy. Man, being on stage has got to be crazy.
Yeah, and I just don't want to be burping into the mic. That's the worst.
Oh, yeah. Forget about that. Yeah, Charles does that all the time. We just nobody ever hears it because we can edit it out.
Same with podcasts. Yeah, you got to make sure everything's flowing nicely.
So now, reading a little bit more into you, you had recently done a little stint and call it a little stint, forgive me, but Fort Bragg.
Yeah.
Now, how did that come about? And if you can, give us a little bit of that experience for you personally, because I'll tell you a little bit about concerts and my basic training afterwards.
Oh, yeah, I would love to hear it, man. Yeah, so I'm on the Deggy Entertainment roster, and they specialize in college bookings. But when I signed on, I noticed that they are really big in the military space. And I was like, that's a cool little bonus. And I didn't know if anything was going to come of that. But they offered me the opening slot for Walker Hayes on 4th of July last year.
Nice, yeah.
And they originally said it's going to be 20,000 people, and the actual total was like 50 or 60,000.
Yeah,
like in that whole space. And man, it was so cool because I got to meet a lot of I think it's called the Gold Star families, people who had just lost someone in the service. So I'm meeting like the wife and the daughter. And honestly, man, it was like such a, just, I don't know, humbling is not the right word, but it was just like such an emotional experience just to see
such a pure moment. Absolutely.
Yeah. And just the generals and everyone who like run that base and just meeting everyone was so welcoming and so nice. And just, for me, it was an emotional thing, but it was just, I don't know, like I've always had such respect for the military, but even just getting to do that and share that with them was just like, I walked away so grateful.
Yeah. Oh, and I'll tell you what, as a fan or as a person on the other side. So when I went to basic training at Fort Benning, Georgia, and Bombshell and Montgomery Gentry came down and played. And outside of us puking our guts out afterwards because we were gifted into all of these great ice cream cookies and just snacks galore, soda, stuff that I hadn't seen in months. I
Yeah.
should have known. I was foolish otherwise. But it was just this small moment that broke the fixture that was basic training, and we were all so grateful. We talked about it for probably the last 4 weeks of basic training, just how awesome those concerts were. Thank you for what you did. That was fantastic, and I know the people out there loved it.
Yeah.
And listening to some of your music, I was visiting your website, chrismorenomusic.com, and your new single How to Act. I love that. Can you tell us a little bit about that song and how it came about?
Yeah, we'll do. And also, I just want to mention, I actually got late last year. I went to Alaska too, to another military base.
well,
So
Charles
Fort
been out there.
Wainwright. I was stationed at Fort Wainwright. Yeah.
yeah, that was such a cool experience too. Just going in the winter, everything's so white, just covered in snow, and just then we drove 2 hours from Wainwright, or maybe it was vice versa. But anyways, we did a 2 hour drive. Me and my guitarist up there, and I don't know, it was just that was wild. That was super cool.
If you ever get back up there, man, you got to take the trip to Chena Hot Springs. In 2007, from Fairbanks to Chena was voted like the most scenic route in Alaska. It's oh my God, dude. I'm not going to tell you how fast you can go because the state troopers in Alaska do a wonderful job, but you can have a fantastic time on that stretch. A bunch of beautiful camping spots. So if your music ever takes you back up there or anything does, man, absolutely check out that Chena spot. It is just glorious.
A bunch of people had mentioned that when I was there for sure. But yeah, How to Act is, I grew up with a 90s rock influence, and
I could hear it in your music. A lot of Matchbox 20, as you had mentioned. In the country. Yeah.
Exactly. And then, but I do love country, and I like the storytelling aspect. So I'm trying to really combine those, not specifically 90s rock, but just that's what it sounds like. But so that song is just it's like a fun, it's going to be fun to play live. It's a little bit more rocking. So I decided to put that one out. And that one's just about like dating. I know I've had plenty of time being single in relationships, and then a lot of time with the casual dating. And that song is just speaking about, not even necessarily first person, but that song speaking about the ambiguity of dating these days, where a lot of it's just you're like pretending you don't like the person as much as they like you, and whatever.
The banter, the back and forth playing.
It's just like the lack of putting titles on anything, just the casual nature of we're dating,
The moment I hit play, and I listened to it on YouTube and via your website there was a buttload of links, especially Spotify, which, I mean, you seem to be rocking on Spotify. We'll pull some of those numbers up. Congratulations on all of that. And much more for your success. The moment the song started playing, I'm telling him, I'm like, man, this is giving me that country vibe. I said, I just want to jump in the truck and go to the beach. It was really nice to hear. Now, something you had mentioned, it caught my ear. You had said when you were writing the song that this became a song that you can have more fun on stage with. Is that something you look into with your music? Is it something that when you're writing music, do you try to be able to be more playful on stage to get interactions with the audience?
Yeah, that's a really good question. For me, it's because as an artist, like I'm putting out songs every 2 months or so, and I try to be very selective. So for every song that's released, I'm writing like 5 to 10 that don't get released. So I'm not just putting everything out. But that being said, I have the sort of songs that I really like to write, a lot of mid-tempo, sometimes balladish, but you need to mix it up for your own sanity, and you need to stretch your comfort zone. So something like that was just like, if it can check the box of being a little bit more fun and up-tempo live, sometimes you do have to think about your set list. And if you're playing 10 songs, it's okay that there's a cohesive sound, but you need variations within that. I do hold weight if I get a song I like and it serves another purpose too, of just being a little bit more like, all right, we're bobbing our heads to this. It feels light. That was a factor with that one for sure. Even like it's not every song. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and it's not every song needs to be like, okay, this is the best thing I've ever written. I'm gonna really be into every song that I put out, but it's sometimes serving a purpose is another aspect of it,
And again, this back and forth banter has brought another great question into my mind. How did the comfort of knowing that not everything you do is going to be how you portray it set in? Where did you gain that ability to just keep trucking? Because a lot of today, sad, right? And a lot of people hit that first road bump and they're like, oh no, And you seem to be not only living it well, but embracing it as part of what moves you forward.
Oh, yeah. So you're asking about the not being able to predict how something will do,
Yes,
or
absolutely. Yeah. Yep.
yeah, I think that's again great question, because I think it's understated how important that is, and same for you guys with the podcast too. It's like everything that you do, the more you do whatever you're doing, the better. Like it's the whole 10,000 hours thing.
Yeah.
And so when I wrote my first album, I put out like an album basically really early on. And that was like, I was so precious about all the songs, and it just held so much weight because it was from the heart and all that. And the music still has to be from the heart. And I always write from that place. If it doesn't mean anything to me, I'm never going to release it. But because the volume is so much higher now, I've written 100, 200 songs. I can emotionally detach from the outcome of it. So it's like great when people like it, but if people didn't like it, I'd be like, oh, cool, maybe I'll learn something from that. But I don't even care anymore.
Right.
I mean, I care, and it's the best thing in the world when they love it.
Absolutely.
But I can detach and move on from it because it's just I'm always
you take the
searching
constructive
for the
criticism for what it is, and you're able to utilize that moving forward. Absolutely, because you read and hear.
Right.
We all read and hear everything. Absolutely.
Yeah, because not everything you do is going to be a home run. So it's like in order to get to the gold, you just have to keep showing up every single day.
Putting in that work. Absolutely. 10,000 hours. Yeah. What a wonderful answer. I could see why over 15 million global streams with over 175,000 monthly listeners on Spotify has been achieved. Absolutely. The power of your music touches people, as music touches many people. What made you want to get into that? And you've mentioned influencing artists, but man, music is that's that thing your teacher looks at you and goes, "Are you sure you want to do that? Not read this book?" I'm sure you I'm sure you heard that. So I'm glad you did, and many other people are. What pushed you forward?
Yeah, I gravitated towards it as a kid. I just would I remember being like 10 years old. I would just lock myself in my room and listen to music or play guitar once I started doing that. But it just always gave me peace of mind. And I always just thought the coolest thing in the world would be if I could do the thing for other people, the thing that meant the most to me. Like that was what made me not feel alone in the world. And to be honest, it still is. But I did it as a kid and as a teenager. And then I actually stopped when I went to college and into my early 20s. I worked and I didn't do music for kind of a while. And then I picked it up later on in life. And I think it was one of those things where I just didn't know if I was maybe even good enough or if I could do it. But then I woke up one morning and I was like, you know what? I'm going to put the time in to take vocal lessons and learn how to song and just see what I can do. And so I never looked back once I set my mind to it. I just never looked back. But yeah, to answer that question, it's the biggest kick that I get is from like knowing that I can give other people what my favorite artists have given me. So what's cooler than that? Nothing.
What a purpose-filling feeling that has become, and that's fantastic. And I definitely hope it continues. And I don't want to be the one. I'm a chatty Cathy, Chris. So I every once in a while I got to grab Pat.
He's good. He's good. I let him go. It's fine.
I know Pat's got a couple questions too, so I'll let Pat throw a few of them out there.
These are going to be like, since you lived in Nashville, I was going to ask you a couple questions. The Smoky Mountains, or have you been to the LBL? The lake between the lakes, or the land between the lakes. The LBL is the land between the lakes in Kentucky. It's a beautiful place. It's a national park, and it's fantastic. You ever get a chance?
Okay, so I've been to the
I've
been to the Smoky Mountains, but I've actually was looking for new places to go this fall. I think you're turning me on to something here that I should check out.
It's northwest of Clarksville, so Fort Campbell. It's by Benton. I don't know. Maybe you've done a few concerts up around this way. This is not too far from Nashville. But yeah, if you get a chance, definitely go there.
Yeah, we'll do. Absolutely.
I hear a lot of people being asked when they do their traveling, what's the first thing you do when you get home? But during your travels, when you enter a new city, outside of checking in and scrunching your feet in a carpet, what's the first thing you do in a new city?
So after the hotel, you're talking about what do I do when I'm a big coffee shop guy, so usually that might be the next day if I get that time. But that's my favorite thing is probably going to bars and stuff after you play. That's always a lot of fun. But yeah, either going out for coffee or going out for drinks and just getting a feel for the city. That's been super cool. I just grew up on the Northeast, and now to live in the central part of the country and being able to see all these other places that I've never seen. Wisconsin being one of those. I was traveling there and played there last year a bunch.
Yeah. You had some cheese curds? Tell me you had some cheese curds.
I didn't.
Wow. All right. We'll have to figure something out. I'll have to mail you some or something. We'll get it on some dry ice or something. You can't be in Wisconsin and not have cheese curds. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
I don't know how that didn't happen. Yeah.
I could, from the sounds of it, again, from the answer there, I pulled out another question. Timing. Everything in your day is scheduled. So those small moments when you're able to create them, how valuable is that to you?
Meaning like when I'm on the road or
yes, no, when you're on the road, absolutely. Because I'm sure between the fans and you want to give them as much time preparing for the next show, that personal time doesn't seem like it pops up a lot. Maybe somebody's got to push you into, hey man, go take a break for a second. How valuable is it?
Yeah, it's all different, but it's super valuable because it's, the traveling is a pain in the ass, the actual traveling, but being in the new place, in the different places is great. And I always, I'll always, like, when I come back, I'll be a lot of times very tired, but also it can just renew my purpose. If I'm not on the road for too long, then I start getting a little bit like stir crazy being at home. Like being on the road a lot of times reminds me of like why I'm doing it in the first place. And that's because of the connection and just the overall experience of playing music.
Yeah. That's fantastic. So now a lot of my information and questions, I'm not going to lie, have come from this wonderful article that you did back in 2018 on thecountrynote.com.
Oh, okay.
And now at the end of that, it had been mentioned that you only had a few months left of 2018 and that your goal was to, over the next couple months, write as many songs as possible. So let's fast forward from that moment till now. You've been in Nashville for a little while, and has the goals continued on the same path, or has Nashville allowed you to become bigger than you thought you could be?
No, there's still so much more that, like, what I've tried to do and what I think I've done is find this balance of being extremely hungry and wanting to go out and get what I feel I'm worth, so to speak, but also being very content with the process. Because if you're not, that just leads to anxiety in comparison to other people. And I've done a pretty good job of eliminating that. But I think really what it is for me is the answer is just always more of the same. And I'm always reframing my strategy and trying to figure that out. But what I mean by that is it's always going to be, the answer is always going to be write more songs, produce more content, keep trying to book the best shows that you can, keep connecting with fans. It's just always, and then ultimately the hope is, like, that was 5 years ago and I can look back and be like, wow, look what I accomplished. Hopefully 5 years from now, it's the same thing. I look back and I'm like, look at what just consistency has gotten me. But I'm a big believer in consistency. I'm a type A personality. So I'm always like, okay, how do we get here? But it's just repetitions, I think, a lot of times.
Yeah. That brings up a good point. One of my favorite sayings was, like, who I am today is not who I was 10 years ago. And who I'm going to be 10 years from now is not who I am today. And just staying on the same path and focusing, and it gets me to that better person that I want to be. And it seems like you're not only accomplishing that, you're also bringing many people with you, along with you in this journey with your music. And Chris, I know we're running a little bit up on time here, so I just want to give you the floor, man, for anything that you want to plug yourself with, anything new that you got coming up, anything that you just want to shout out, because we appreciate you and your time, and I can't wait to deep dive further into your music.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. Thank you guys for having me. It's been great questions, honestly. But yeah, I think it's just the more that I can have a platform and the more that I can hopefully find success, the more I do want to talk about that message, which is, like, again, I spent a chunk of my life not even thinking that I could be doing music as a singer or songwriter. So I just think it's so important that I want to spread the message of just do step one. And then if you're whatever it is you want to do, and then from there, if that keeps calling you, then just keep going and just don't stop until you really want to stop. So I try to always, some of that ends up in the music, but that's always whenever I talk, is I want to preach that message, because I just think like we're so capable of doing a lot more than we realize.
Yes. And I say this all the time. We're all born so uniquely beautiful. Get out there and shine like that unique star you can be. Absolutely.
Yeah. And everybody has,
go ahead.
I was going to say, everyone has an artistic, everyone has like an artistic part to them, and it can manifest whatever you're doing. There's art, there's creativity involved with whatever you're doing.
Manifestation.
And I just think and I just think it's more of a skill than people realize. It's like that repetition, and then do it, and then like assess, and then do it, and then assess. It's like
trusting yourself. Absolutely. Yeah. Yep. Trusting in yourself.
God, and you learn to trust yourself the more you do it too. Yeah. You learn to like go off your own intuition.
Yeah. My biggest teacher in life, even to this day, has been my failures. As long as I'm not making the same mistake the same way over and over again, hell yeah, mistake me up.
Dude, it's sad, man, because you can learn a little bit by success, but failure really teaches you.
Oh, hell yeah. It teaches you what you should have done and shouldn't have done, and it teaches you who the hell you are. Yeah, absolutely. And you had mentioned too about the platform. Chris, anytime you want to come, we will give you all the time in the world. This has been an absolute pleasure. I look forward to following you in the future. And I'm a chatty Cathy, so expect an email or two.
I love it, man. Yeah, it was great to connect with you guys. I'm looking forward to sharing this whenever it comes out. So
absolutely.
Soon. Yeah,
sweet, probably sometime.
Awesome. Sweet.
All right. Thank you very much.
Many blessings to you and your family, Chris. Thank you.
All the best, guys. Thank you so much. This was great.